Welcome to Becoming Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Campbell. I'm a doula in Washoe County, Nevada, a Medicaid provider, a lactation educator, childbirth educator, and mom of 18. You can find me and connect on doulainreno.com. Remember, give a shout out to those who are brave enough to share their stories with us on how they have become parents. Let's dive in. Welcome to Becoming Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Campbell. And today I'm here with Dr. Jerri Johnson. How are you today?
I am fantastic on this Turkey Day Eve.
It is Turkey Day Eve. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone in the US. And I love your hair.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gorgeous. I want you to jump in and share your parenting journey with us.
Oh, geez. Okay. So this is an interesting story because I began my career as an educator right out of college. So working with other people's children, I literally said, I don't want to have any kids, right? I mean, I did it because working with other people's children all day, a classroom of 25, 30 kids, you know what I'm saying? You're giving so much to other people's children that I just knew that going home to my own, I did not know if I would have the energy, the investment, that it takes to raise a child until adulthood or after. And so I was just like, I don't want to have any kids. I didn't want to have any kids in the back of my mind. I got married at 25.
Okay.
And my ex-husband now was older than me. He's 7 years older than me. So when we got married, he was ready to have kids. Like he was in his career, all of that. And I was like, just let's hold up, like hold up a second. Let me finish I finished my first master's degree. And then I was like, okay, maybe we can do this, right? And so ended up getting pregnant after, a while, like trying for 6 months. It wasn't working. Then all of a sudden I pop up pregnant the next day after we had like a very tumultuous conversation with each other. The next day I found out I was pregnant. God was working, obviously, because I really was like, let's just wait and work on us until, then we can talk about kids. And that conversation just went way left. And then I found out I was pregnant the next day. So I knew that my daughter was destined to be here. We ended up separating 8 months after my daughter was born. And we co-parented from the time that she was 8 months old.
Holy cow.
Yes. And now she is 22 and she'll be 23 in May. So
I was single after my first when she was like 13 months old. And did you find it easier to be on your own and not wishing that person would step up? Was there a lot of fear in being a single parent? And co-parenting for like 17 plus years is hard. So what was all of that like? Because leaving's not an easy thing.
No, it wasn't an easy thing. It wasn't an easy choice. But as some of us, we get to a point where we exhaust all possibilities and we just have to receive the fact that this just may not work, right?
Yeah.
And I saw things going on with my students in my classrooms that I didn't want to go on with my daughter. Like I saw students going, to a different house in the middle of the week and, didn't have homework, would come to school crying because, dad and mom or dad forgot their backpack and, I won't see them for another week and all this type of stuff. So I had a sense of what I wanted my daughter's life to be like as a co-parent, and it was not easy. I never wanted to be what I called a statistic.
Yeah.
I never wanted to be divorced. I didn't get married to get divorced. I got married to stay married, right? And especially with having kids, my parents have been married for over 50 years. Um, and my twin sister got married shortly after me, and she's still married. So, you compound that with the fact that I'm getting divorced in a circle of people who are basically married.
Yeah.
Um, no, it was not easy, and it was very difficult. The choice wasn't easy, but I knew that I had to make the best of it for my daughter and the way that I wanted her to have a life. Um, a lot of guilt, shame came along with that I had to work through. I've been to therapy several times in my life. Not just because of that, but just because of other things. But I wanted my daughter's life to be as normal as possible in this particular situation.
How did you manage that? Because I went through the same thing. I didn't get married to get divorced. It's not what I wanted. I also can't imagine if staying either. So like staying wasn't an option, but
Right.
and the realization, I mean, I went to a therapist once that said, you can't change anyone. So you need to decide to stay in the situation that you're in, and then you got to let it go. You have to stay, or you need to decide this is not what you want and leave. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't want this. Like, this isn't working for me. So I was hoping for the change thing. It doesn't work that way.
It's
Truly.
like a magic wand. Can I just have the magic wand?
Where's the
Can I?
godmother? I want the fairy godmother. But then you have to navigate this situation for like almost 2 decades. How did you find a balance? Because I know what you're talking about seeing kids in school. I did foster care. You see these kids, and it is so apparent in a group of kids which ones come from divorced families. And those were my kids, and that hurt my heart.
Yes,
How did
it
you
does.
navigate that?
The best that I could without losing my mind.
There is no secret. One.
I mean, it was helpful that my daughter was with me half time. She was with her dad half time. So we both had breaks, right? We had 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. I created this schedule where she never went a whole week without seeing the other parent. So 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. She saw the other parent on those weekends, and we always switched out at school.
Yeah.
So there was no us having to come to each other's place or anything like that. It was I created that schedule because I knew I had seen everything go awry with other types of schedules with
Yeah.
students in my classroom. So once again, the Lord was working because I had so many kids in my classroom that were being co-parented in kindergarten, second grade, young kids. So I saw all these things go on before I had to do it with my own.
Yep.
And no, I didn't like the divorce thing, but I navigated it as much as I possibly could without showing animosity towards my ex-husband, without talking to her negatively about her father, without the facial expressions, the nonverbals that we exhibit more than anything else in our communication, without the negativity. I did it as best as I could without the negativity, no matter what we were going through, because the first few years were tough. Like, it got worse before it got better, you know? And I tell people that all the time. You have to go through the bad part, the worst of it first, in order for it to get better, because you all are learning how to navigate this life apart, but also together for your child. Um, and that's a difficult thing for a lot of people to do, is put themselves aside and what they want or what they feel or what they want to say and do, and think about what's best for the child, because they're looking at you at all times. Like, they're looking at you through everything. You think they're not looking, they're not listening, but they are. You are modeling life for them, and how to navigate it appropriately, how to navigate it positively, how to navigate it just being a good human. And no
Hard.
matter what the other person is doing, you have to learn how to disconnect from that and focus on what the child needs. So it was a very difficult process for me going from single and living my life to married and worried about another human being, then divorced and worrying about a tiny human,
Yeah.
and all this time I'm having to put my needs and things like that, or my wants, not my needs, because I had my basic needs, my wants aside, because I needed to think about what was best for her. So,
Switching at school is like the easiest thing. That was smart because the backpack's there, right? The homework's there. They can,
mhm,
that's one really great suggestion. I know another thing that worked, and I want you to talk about other suggestions that you have, was like we weren't moving shoes back and forth and clothes back and forth and toiletries. Like you had an entire
no,
set at both houses. There were some things like for prom or for like things came up where you did need to go pick something up, and
yes,
that's not the end of the world, but we wanted to minimize, like you have both types of shoes at both houses, and it means I'm buying them and he's buying them. But holy cow, when we first started and it was like stopping at each other's house every single switch after school on the way home so that they could go in and pick up all their stuff. And I was like, well, there's got to be a better system. And it was really just having duplicate everything at both houses that helped a lot. Did you do that? And what are some other things that helped with that? Because there are two houses that work very, very differently, different rules, different structure.
absolutely.
And I used to say, like, as long as there's not neglect or abuse, neither one of us is doing it wrong just because we're doing it differently. But having to respect the fact that someone does things so differently than you and not wanting to rail about it. You saw my face, you know what I'm talking about. Like, why are you doing that? But it's really hard, to say constantly, like, Dad has a way of doing things and it really works for him. And it's so there's nothing wrong just because we're doing it differently, even though he's a freaking idiot. And I don't know what he's doing with his life. Like you cannot internal monologue. So how did you make more easier? Because I know the school is one of the first things, that's one of the easiest ways to make this transition.
Oh my God, the level of restraint.
We need to put this on a resume. Like,
That has to be like one of the like work qualities that you, because the level of restraint you have to not say anything to another adult
oh,
about the way that they are either raising your child or, talking to your child or what
oh,
have you. You really learn grace. And you have to, because you will drive yourself freaking nuts if you do not. You will always worry about what's happening at the other house or what are they doing? Or, the kids come back and they complain, well, dad did this or dad didn't do this and da, da, da. It's very difficult. But one of the things, yes, switching at the school,
yep,
pick up and drop off, was a very easy transition for us, especially once she started school. That was what we started doing. And there was no breaks in between the school week. There was no switching on a Wednesday night.
right.
No, no. She had one full week, school week with the one parent. They were responsible that week for everything that she did during that week, whether it was extracurriculars, whether it was a field trip. It was that week, that parent that she was with was responsible for that
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. You have other things that come up
right
like
now. Yeah,
school plays and music performance, things that neither parent really is excited about going to, but we do it anyway. The 6 hour recorder performance.
Yeah.
Like there are things like that too that, I tried to get to as many as I could. I know I got really good at taking off work and going on field trips.
Yes.
So like you have to figure out what's your jam. My jam was not PTA or working in the classroom, although I did a little bit of that, but my jam was totally field trips. So I tried to go to every single field trip that I possibly could go to. And it's just hard. I mean, you have to just kind of, but those are great suggestions.
Yeah, and we set up a calendar. So, and I basically did all of this, the starting. So I had a like a paper calendar. And I would put everything that she had for the month, days I was off, things like that. So whenever it fell on, like if she wasn't with me and I was off of school and she was off of school, she would still come with me during the day and go, her father would pick her up, things like that. So we would schedule out holidays ahead of time, all of that, just looking at the calendar. I would do 3 months at a time, which was quarters, because of school. I
Right.
did quarters. And so everything revolved around her schooling, extracurriculars, any academic stuff that she was in, all of that, because both he and I were very big on education. So that worked out well. So just paper calendars sometimes that are posted on the refrigerator. I would do dinners out that way. I would put her activities on there. And when she got old enough, she would start adding
Yep.
to that calendar. So we had something visual. And then also we would calendar everything in the phone. We shared a calendar on the phone,
That's great.
just us two. If we needed to, we would share calendar events so that we had them on our calendar. Another thing that was very helpful for us was scheduling summer activities. When
Yeah.
she was out of school, starting in January, I would start looking for summer activities for her and start scheduling things for her for the summer. Because I was a single mother, a
Yeah.
lot of times they would have grants, or scholarships or whatever. I would just go off of my income and get her some summer activities scheduled. So we would have the summer together as well by the time she ended school, and we would know what we need to do for the summer. Communication, especially as she was going through school, was strictly and wholly about her, unless something was happening with our families or something like that.
Mhm.
So there was no personal. It would be like, hey, how you doing today? Ash has what X, Y, and Z, but it was cordial. It wasn't, we could laugh and joke with each other and stuff like that eventually. But yes, my daughter totally understood, and I had to have these conversations with her. That's your father's house. That's how he decides to run his house.
Yep.
This is how I decide to run my house. And my daughter will talk to anybody about it to this day, that she lived in two different worlds.
Yep. And that's
Literally
hard.
two different worlds. And however, she appreciates it now because she's able to navigate situations and people, that may not be the easiest people and situations to deal with, because she went through that.
Mhm.
She went from my household and the way that I parent to a different type of parenting style and a different household. So, and then eventually my ex-husband got married, and thank God for his wife, her stepmother, because she just kind of came into the fold. You know what I'm saying? And her parenting style is very, very similar to mine. So, it worked out. It worked
That's
out very,
lucky.
yeah.
My ex-husband never ended up remarrying, although he was in two pretty serious relationships. I did. Blending families is awfully hard. And then when you have a step parent, when you are a step parent, that can be really tricky too, because there's this other woman who really doesn't want anything to do with you, quite
Yeah.
honestly. And
Yeah.
but is parenting your kids. And I used to always tell him, I hope if you remarry, it's someone that loves our kids the way I do. It was easier that he didn't, but I mean, that is another layer. I was going to ask about that because navigating dating and bringing someone else in, it's easier. Here's the thing about single parenting, and I don't mean this to sound terrible, but one of the things about the kids going back and forth is that it does give you a break, and that
Yes.
break to like be you. I never brought men to my house unless I was in a really serious relationship with them, so the kids didn't even know. And I did most of my extracurricular activities when they weren't with me.
Yes. Right.
So there are some like weird bonuses that help you be able to navigate your adult life to some degree. But yeah, bringing someone else in, that's a hard thing.
It
That's a
was, I mean, and we had some difficult conversations about it. Because we both were kind of dating. And we agreed that if anyone was going to be around our daughter, you introduce me to that person
yeah,
before they're around her. I mean, there was one time where the restraint was out the door, and I was like, listen, if anything ever happens to our daughter because of someone that you're with, I'm coming for her, and then I'm coming for you.
yeah, yep,
It's both of you all. It's not a either or, because this is my child.
yeah,
Like, so if you think that this person is supposed to be around my child and something happens with this person and my child, that means your judgment is off. That means you gonna catch it along with she gonna catch it. So it's everybody gonna catch it.
yeah. Well, it's the same thing with like,
My kid.
when a woman walks in and her husband's having an affair and she wants to beat up the other woman, I'm like, they're but like beat them both up because like actually maybe beat him up. She might not have known,
That's
it's not
true.
yeah. Place the blame where it needs to be placed. Yeah, we had some of those tense conversations also.
Yeah.
It's just hard. It's just really hard to navigate. You said that you had your first master's, you have a doctor before your name. I
Mhm.
want to do a shout out because I'm so proud of you. Tell us about all the masters and all the doctorates and all the things. And what
Thank you.
and why? Oh, hey, I want to shout that one out forever. Yes.
Well, in the state of Missouri, when you become an educator, in order to be certified, they make you go through these steps, right? So at each step, you have to go back and get certain degrees.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't know that. This is why educators need to be paid more, because to keep their certification up, they have to go back to school. Like, we're some of the most educated people that you probably will ever meet. So I ended up doing a master's degree in educational administration. And then the state of Missouri required that I get what's called a specialist degree. And then I did a PhD in teaching and learning. So I have 4 degrees in the field of education, which is cray cray. And by the time I put it in my book. By the time I was graduating with my PhD, I didn't even want to go to graduation. And my daughter was like, Mom, you've been in school all my life. Like, literally, I was in school all her life. Like, she was 16, I think, at the time, 14 at the time that I think I graduated from with my PhD. And she was like, I'm watching you walk across this stage. You're
Good.
going to graduate.
What a great example, though. What an amazing example that she saw you always working and always going to school. And that's crazy about the education. It is not like that in Nevada. And possibly you guys are doing it way better. We're one of the lowest states for education. You were involved in education before you had a daughter. How much did your perception of your job change after being a parent? Because you said that you noticed like kids that were in broken homes and stuff like that. But when you're really doing it for reals yourself, especially single parenting, how did that shift your job focus or perception?
Well, it definitely made me more empathetic
Mm,
to what students were bringing into the classroom every day, coming from, excuse me, situations that they couldn't control. You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? So it was very frustrating on their end. And when you're thinking about tiny humans who don't know how to regulate emotions, who don't know what emotions they're feeling, and then also how to process it, how to let it out in productive ways. It gave me more empathy for students that were in homes like that, because essentially, kids are kids. They come to school, they're happy to be at school, they want to learn, but they got all these other things going on around them that are
Mm-hmm.
adult issues most of the time, because all they come to school to talk about is my mom this, or I can't see my dad because my mom said X, Y, and Z, and it's nothing about them. It's nothing about I can't, you know what I'm saying? Or I don't want to. It's everything about what's going on with adults outside of them. And they can't control their life. They have to have an adult to sustain them. So they didn't ask for this, you
Yeah.
know? And a lot of times I think if I had not gone through the situation that I've gone through, I think that, yeah, my lens would have been different. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have had that extra lens to have the empathy and the grace for when they have days or months, weeks, or a whole school year that they're struggling because of the homes that they're coming from or
And
going to.
it's awful. And then when you realize that your child is one of those kids, kind of hits a little differently on that. Like you want to save them and protect them from everything that you can. Tell me about the work you do, like the creative safe spaces is what you are.
Oh,
And Thrive and Not Survive. You're an author, a consultant, a leader. I mean, like you're doing a lot in education, but talk to me about some of those things and how they connect.
so the creating safe spaces for people was something I was very big on, especially as a classroom teacher, but then also moving through the different positions that I had to district office and, being a school principal and things like that. So creating safe spaces for us in education means that, children or adults can come and be basically themselves, having that authentic part of yourself, modeling that for others, and then also them being comfortable enough to come to you because of that. So I always had an open door policy as a leader. My door in the office was always open. You had to catch me in my office because I was always in classrooms and doing other things. But teachers, I always tried to create the space for adults and for kids where they always knew that they could come talk to me no matter how difficult things were or what the situation was. Mind you, that invites a lot of stuff. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying? And you have to be ready for what's coming at you if you say, you can tell me what it is, or you can be yourself, or what have you have to be ready to be able to navigate those things, those statements, those situations that come with that. And one of the biggest things that I used to kind of communicate to the staff was nothing's bad enough or too difficult that we can't like handle together.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't know about something, I can't support you in it.
Yep.
You have to feel safe enough with me. And if you don't feel safe enough with me, I don't mind you telling someone else and they can come to tell me. So I try my best in any environment that I'm in, even when I'm consulting with schools. If I'm coming into a new school, I'm getting to know the staff, things like that. I try to do things and speak in such an authentic way and be who I am. So that lets their guards down
Mm-hmm.
and they would be able to do as such, because I can't help you if we don't get down to the dirty. You know what I'm saying? Like I really can't help and support you if we can't have tough conversations. And I don't mind tough conversations. Confrontation is not a bad thing to me. It can be a good thing. If you don't address the elephant in the room, nothing will ever get fixed. So I don't have a problem with confrontation, and that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. So I used to tell a lot of people, get comfortable with uncomfortable for me when dealing with me, because there are going to be times where I make you uncomfortable, not on purpose, but and there are going to be times where you make me uncomfortable. Well, we're going to have to talk about that. So I try my best to create the spaces where people can grow. One of my big things is I want to leave people and things better than I found them in any situation, in any conversation that I have with anyone. I want to leave people better than I found them. And I'm a big person that wants to grow and help people thrive. And I don't like to see people just surviving. It used to bother me when teachers used to come to school and say, I'm all right, you know, like, I'm
Fine.
like, what does
The
that
word
mean?
fine. The word fine's terrifying. We cannot ever use that. I love that you opened it up and you're like, this is a safe place. You can talk about anything. And you were like, bring it. I'm there for these conversations. And you are also stating, like, if you're going to open up that space, you better be bracing yourself. Cause, like, for real, even my kids that are adults now that talk about things that happened that they didn't talk about at the time, I'm like, first of all, did you have any parents around? Was anyone there? But also, like, why didn't you say something? Why did you and so it takes a lot for kids to feel comfortable talking, even when their parents are safe, their school is safe, their teachers are great, their counselor is awesome. It doesn't mean that they're comfortable. So setting that up is really important. The last and maybe most important thing I want to talk about is fab over 40. Because I stalk you online now. Tell
Oh
me.
my God, I didn't think that was, yeah, this is uncomfortable.
Oh, we like uncomfortable conversations. Tell me about Fab over 40.
Oh my gosh. 5 over 40 was a dare from,
All
from
right.
one of my friends whose aunt passed of breast cancer. And so, they raise money for breast cancer awareness. So he had this come across his email, and he was like, "Oh my God, you should totally like apply for this." Even though I'm almost 50, I'll be 50 next month, but this is over 40. So I guess it goes, right? And so he was like, you should totally apply to this. I bet you would get in. And so I was like, no, I don't have time for that. Like, I'm trying to focus on some other things. And he was like, well, he actually paid me to register for it. Like,
I love it. Okay.
I was
Okay.
like, well, how much I gotta give you to see at least apply, you know? And so I apply, and then of course I like get in. And so now I've started it and I can't stop. By that, like I do not like quitting things that I've started. So, and I should stop allowing people to dare me stuff, because it's so many things that I've, been on LinkedIn talking about people dared me to do. But yeah, so then I ended up getting to one of the finalist rounds. And actually there's two more, I think two or three more. But I'm out of it now. So
Oh,
yeah, I did not make it through the last round. And then they ended up asking me to do some type of wild card round.
okay.
But I had some other things, and I'm not a social media. I'm just not. I don't like asking people for things. And I
Okay.
got to get out of this. But I don't like asking people for things, especially like votes and all this, or donations and all this type of stuff. And being on social media that much, honestly, Jen, it was very uncomfortable for me. Very uncomfortable for me, because every week it was something like I was moving to the next round. Every week it was something that I needed to put out in posts, to get
Yeah.
votes. And it was super duper uncomfortable for me.
But how
Um,
great.
it was. I mean, it was a fantastic experience. Fantastic. I met some people, some women, some great women through the process, you know, of being online, never seen their faces, but just the energy that, you know, came off the line in our conversations and things like that. And they did some great things behind the scenes. You know, they sent us video motivations, showed us different, you know, entrepreneurs and you know, all this type of stuff. Just like it was more like a women's empowerment. Like I got really motivated to do the things that I'm about to do um, through this process. So, I mean, everything happens for a reason, right?
Yeah. How
Everything.
great. Well, it's just one more thing I want to shout out because I'm proud of you for doing it. Even on a dare, I would have dared you to do it also. So there you go. Thank you so much for sharing your story. How impressive. I just love it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I love talking about my story and the fact that we all can co-parent successfully, what we feel like is successfully, because success is like relative, right?
Yep.
Um, I just love the fact that you're doing this because
Oh,
people need to know the realities of co-parenting, but also need to have that support system. And I'm looking forward to partnering with you in the future.
yay. Thank you.